At 3:07 in the morning, your brain can turn one unread email into the collapse of your entire future. You wake up, the room is quiet, nothing has happened, then a thought arrives. Maybe your boss sounded strange yesterday, maybe somebody you love has not replied, maybe you remember one embarrassing sentence from 11 years ago, and suddenly it is evidence in a case against your whole personality. By daylight, the same problem might deserve a phone call and 10 minutes of thought. At 3 a.m., it arrives wearing a judge's robe. The popular explanation is that some ancient part of your brain thinks a predator is outside. That is a great image. It is not a demonstrated mechanism. Your brain does not have a known wolf at 3 switch. Cortisol does not hit a universal panic button at exactly that hour. And for a night shift worker or a committed night owl, 3 in the morning may not even be the biological middle of the night. But the feeling is real. So why can a thought feel darker, more urgent, and more convincing when almost everything around you is still? Because 3 a.m. can place a waking mind in a very particular biological situation, low on circadian support, possibly fogged by sleep inertia, short on emotional control, and completely alone with its own alarm. First, the clock on the wall is not the clock in your brain. Inside the hypothalamus, a small timing system coordinates daily rhythms across the body. Light helps set it, so do routines, sleep timing, meals, and activity. The result is a biological day and a biological night. For many people who sleep on a conventional schedule, 3 in the morning lands deep inside biological night. Melatonin is high, core body temperature is moving toward its low point. The body is organized around staying asleep, not writing a calm 5-year plan. But that phase moves. An early bird, a teenager, a shift worker, and somebody with jet lag can look at the same clock while occupying different biological times. That is why 3 a.m. brain is useful shorthand, not a diagnosis. Sleep pressure matters too. The longer you have been awake, the more the need for sleep builds. If you went to bed normally and just woke up, you may have a different problem. Part of the brain is awake enough to think, while the rest has not fully finished the transition. That transition has a name: sleep inertia. Sleep is not 8 hours of one continuous state. The brain cycles through non-REM and REM sleep, usually 4 to 6 times a night. Brief awakenings can happen between cycles. Most vanish from memory because you roll over and return to sleep. Sometimes, though, an awakening catches. You hear a pipe, you feel too warm, a dream leaves an emotional residue, you notice your bladder, or no obvious cause presents itself at all. Now the conscious mind is online during a phase when alertness and performance are usually being pushed downward by the circadian system. In one small forced desynchrony experiment, researchers woke people at different biological times. On a simple mental arithmetic task, sleep inertia was 3.6 times larger during the biological night than during the biological day. That number does not mean every decision is 3.6 times worse. It came from 12 people doing one kind of task. But it captures the basic mismatch. You can be conscious before you are fully competent. And because the room contains almost no new information, the first emotionally charged thought can occupy the entire stage. A rested brain does not merely generate emotion, it regulates it. Threat, embarrassment, and uncertainty can grab attention quickly. Frontal brain systems help add context. They compare the alarm with memory, goals, probabilities, and the possibility that maybe the email was just an email. Sleep loss can weaken that control. In a famous brain imaging experiment, people kept awake for roughly 35 hours showed stronger amygdala responses to negative pictures and altered communication with prefrontal regions. Later work has added an important correction. Sleep deprivation does not always create a simple bias toward everything negative. In one larger experiment, the clearer change was worse deliberate regulation of negative emotion and a loss of positive feeling. That distinction matters. The tired mind may not be discovering more danger, it may be getting worse at putting danger in proportion. Positive possibilities also require mental energy. This can wait. There are 3 explanations I can ask tomorrow. Those are quiet, effortful thoughts. Catastrophe is fast. Researchers have proposed a framework called the mind after midnight hypothesis. The idea is that being awake during biological night may change the balance between emotionally driven salience, reward, impulse, and executive control. In plain language, important things can feel more important, while the systems that normally question them are working under poor conditions. It is a serious scientific proposal. It is also still a proposal. Its authors explicitly call for studies that separate circadian phase from simply being awake too long. Much of the existing evidence comes from total sleep deprivation, shift work, or population patterns, not from watching an ordinary person wake for 20 minutes at 3:07. And none of it proves that your brain is replaying a prehistoric predator shift. Humans absolutely face danger at night. Humans also kept fires, cared for infants, guarded food, told stories, and slept in groups. Evolutionary stories are easy to invent because the past cannot interrupt us and ask for the data. The safer conclusion is less cinematic and more useful. The waking brain is operating at an unusual time, with an emotional system that can speak quickly and a control system that may answer slowly. It feels like being hunted because urgency is one of the sensations the brain can produce. The sensation is not proof of a hunter. For someone with insomnia, this can become more than one strange night. You wake up and check the clock, 3:12. Then you calculate, if I fall asleep now, I can still get 4 hours and 48 minutes. 10 minutes later, you check again. Now you are not only awake, you are monitoring wakefulness. Tomorrow's fatigue appears in advance. You imagine the meeting, the drive, the headache, and the next night, the bed becomes a place where sleep must be achieved, and effort is an arousing state. Modern insomnia models call part of this hyperarousal. The evidence is strongest for cognitive, emotional, and cortical arousal, worry, racing thoughts, sleep monitoring, and a brain that has learned to associate bedtime with alertness. Evidence for every proposed heart rate or stress hormone marker is more mixed. This is not a person choosing to stay awake. It is a feedback loop. Concern about sleep produces arousal. Arousal delays sleep. The delay becomes evidence that the concern was justified. And the clock provides fresh bad news every time you look. This is where cortisol usually enters the story. You may have heard that a cortisol spike at 3 a.m. jolts the body into panic. Normal cortisol timing is more complicated. Levels are generally low around late evening and midnight. Signals that drive cortisol begin rising again during the latter part of biological night, often around 2 or 3, and cortisol reaches its high point around waking or in the early morning. That rise helps prepare the body for the coming day. It is not a universal panic attack scheduled by the adrenal glands. Stress can activate the same hormone system. Insomnia can interact with it. Age, illness, medication schedule, and individual biology all matter. But finding a normal pre-morning rise near the time of a worried thought does not prove that one caused the other. The more honest model has several moving parts: circadian timing, the sleep stage you left, how long you have been awake, how much sleep you have been getting, what woke you, and what your mind learned to do the last time this happened. No single hormone gets to take the entire blame. So what do you do with a thought that feels like an emergency in a silent room? First, separate the information from the verdict. I need to answer that email may be information. My career is over is a verdict. Write down the smallest useful version of the thought, then give the verdict a daylight appointment. You are not declaring it false, you are refusing to hold court while half awake. Avoid turning the clock into a scoreboard. Keep the light low. If you are awake long enough that the bed becomes a place for wrestling with sleep, cognitive behavioral treatment for insomnia uses a counterintuitive tool. Get up, do something quiet in dim light, and return when sleepy. The goal is to reconnect bed with sleep instead of effort. For long-term insomnia, that full treatment is called CBT-I. It is more than generic advice about buying a better pillow, and major sleep organizations recommend it as a first-line approach. Repeated awakenings can also have physical causes. Alcohol can make sleep lighter later in the night. Pain, medication, hot flashes, restless legs, and breathing problems can wake people too. Loud snoring, gasping, persistent insomnia, or daytime impairment deserve a conversation with a qualified clinician. And there is one exception to the daylight rule. If the thought involves immediate danger to you or someone else, do not wait for morning. Contact local emergency or crisis support now. The strangest part of a 3 a.m. thought is not that it is always wrong. Sometimes the email really does need an answer, the relationship really does need a conversation, the mistake really does need repair. What changes at night is often the scale. A problem loses its edges. There is no commute, no breakfast, no other person in the room, no ordinary task arriving to prove that life is still larger than this one concern. The brain fills the empty frame. Circadian low points can darken mood. Sleep inertia can muddy thought. Lost sleep can weaken emotional regulation. Worry can train the bed to feel like an alarm. None of those mechanisms requires an invisible predator. So when the room goes quiet and your mind announces that it has finally understood the terrible truth, remember what kind of witness is speaking. Listen for the useful fact. Write it down, then let a rested brain cross-examine it in the morning.